It was a stormy night, the kind where the rain seemed to pour from the sky in endless sheets. Inside the small suburban home, the only light flickered from a dim bedside lamp, casting long shadows across the room. Sarah, a typical high schooler dealing with the pressures of exams and her parents' recent separation, sat at her desk, the glow from her computer screen illuminating her tired eyes. The wind howled outside, and every now and then, the branches of the tree outside her window scratched against the glass, sending a shiver down her spine. She had heard the stories before, urban legends that people whispered about in hushed tones at school, trying to scare each other. But tonight, alone in her room, those stories felt far too real. As she typed away, trying to distract herself from the eerie feeling that something was watching her, she couldn't shake the sense of dread that had settled in her gut. A loud crash echoed through the house, causing Sarah to jump in her seat. It was probably just the wind knocking something over, she told herself, but the hairs on the back of her neck stood up as if to disagree. She stood up and slowly made her way to the door, her heart pounding in her chest. As she stepped into the dark hallway, the shadows seemed to stretch and twist unnaturally, making it hard to tell what was real and what was her imagination. She reached the bathroom at the end of the hall, her hand trembling as she flicked on the light. The room was empty, just as it should be, but something felt off. The mirror above the sink was fogged up, despite the fact that no one had used the shower recently. She took a deep breath, telling herself she was just being paranoid, and wiped the mirror with her hand. For a moment, everything seemed normal until she saw it. A pale, grinning face staring back at her from behind her reflection. It was there for only a split second, but it was enough. She spun around, her eyes wide with terror, but the bathroom was empty. Her heart raced as she tried to convince herself it was just a trick of the light, but deep down, she knew better. Jeff the killer. The name flashed in her mind, unbidden and unwanted. The stories of the sadistic, smiling figure that haunted the night, preying on the fear of the innocent, had always been dismissed as just another creepypasta, a tale to scare children. But standing there, in that cold, empty bathroom, Sarah couldn't deny what she had seen. She backed out of the bathroom, her eyes darting around the hallway as if expecting Jeff to appear at any moment. The wind outside had picked up, and the house seemed to groan under its force. The shadows in the hallway seemed to pulse with life, growing darker, more sinister. Panic set in as she realized she was trapped in her own home with something that shouldn't exist. Suddenly, she heard it, a soft, almost playful chuckle coming from the direction of her bedroom. Sarah's blood ran cold as she recognized the sound. She didn't want to go back, but something compelled her to move forward, as if some invisible force was pulling her toward the source of the laughter. She entered her bedroom, her breath caught in her throat. The lamp had gone out, leaving the room bathed in darkness, except for the faint glow from her computer screen. The cursor blinked on an empty page, a stark contrast to the terror she felt. Then, she saw him, sitting on her bed, his head tilted slightly to the side, that twisted grin stretching across his pale face. Jeff's eyes, dark and lifeless, locked onto hers. "Go to sleep," he whispered, the words hanging in the air like a death sentence. Sarah froze, every instinct screaming at her to run, but her legs wouldn't move. She felt like she was drowning in his gaze, the world around her narrowing to just that smile, that grin that promised pain, suffering, and worse. Without warning, Jeff lunged at her, his movements swift and unnatural. Sarah screamed, finally finding her voice, but it was too late. The last thing she saw was the flash of his knife as it glinted in the faint light. The next morning, the house was quiet. The storm had passed, leaving only the remnants of the night's terror. Sarah's parents returned home to find her room in disarray, her bed empty, and the computer still on, the words "go to sleep" typed across the screen. No one knew what had happened to Sarah. Some said she ran away, unable to cope with the pressures of her life. But those who knew the truth, who had seen that smile in the dark, whispered a different story. Jeff the killer had claimed another victim, another soul to add to his collection. And somewhere, out there in the night, Jeff still waits, grinning in the shadows, ready to strike again.